Chapter 1514, Huge Movement. Chapter 1514, Huge Movement. For the birth of a white blaze fruit for the first 3 times, Jian Wushuang was too far away and he couldn't rush there in time. However, the 4th time, Jian Wushuang managed to get there in time. There were 3 white blaze fruits that came to the world at the same time. When Jian Wushuang appeared at the birthplace, there was already a mad fight going on. There was a total of 100 universe gods that participated in the 5th battle. Out of the 3 white blaze fruits, 2 were taken away. The remaining 1 fell into the hands of a universe god. Jian Wushuang knew the universe god too. His name was Universe God Tai Kang. Universe God Tai Kang was in the 28th place on Universe God ranking list. He was considered one of the top experts. Even when he came across an ordinary real god, he could fight head-on. But then, Universe God Tai Kang was besieged by almost 100 universe gods. If it wasn't for him being extremely strong in defense, he would have been killed long ago. Jian Wushuang immediately got involved and cast 18 shadows simultaneously. Under the effect of power of spacetime, he went through the crowd and appeared before Universe God Tai Kang. Universe God Tai Kang, pass me the white blaze fruit. Otherwise, die. Jian Wushuang's bellow traveled into Universe God Tai Kang's ears. You are Jian Wushuang? Universe God Tai Kang almost recognized Jian Wushuang. Even though he was unwilling to, he took out the white blaze fruit and threw it at Jian Wushuang. He was certain that Jian Wushuang would never come and he could only opt to give up the white blaze fruit under the siege of almost 100 universe gods. As Jian Wushuang came, he decided to just give a favor at a little cost. Jian Wushuang extended his hand and took the white blaze fruit. The 4th. Jian Wushuang smiled delightedly. It's Jian Wushuang. The white blaze fruit is with Jian Wushuang. Kill him, kill him. The surrounding universe gods immediately redirected their focus and chased after Jian Wushuang in madness. Humph. Jian Wushuang humphed and he traveled like a ghost and went through the crowd recklessly. Everywhere he went, he wielded his Blood Mountain sword and immediately killed 4 universe gods who were blocking his way at the front. Then, he passed through the crowd. How could he? He charged out from our siege so easily. The martial art motion is too terrifying. The universe gods found it unbelievable. When they had besieged Universe God Tai Kang, he couldn't even struggle. However, Jian Wushuang dashed out from their siege in an instant. Jian Wushuang. A low bellow was suddenly heard. Jian Wushuang turned around and his gaze was fixed. Demon King Icefeather? Demon King Icefeather, the 8th ranked on the brand new Universe God ranking list. You have already gotten 3 white blaze fruits on the 1st level of the cave. Now, you want to get the 4th one? You are too greedy. Demon King Icefeather's voice shook the sky. His figure caught up at lightning speed, far faster than any other universe gods. Hehe, if you were me, you definitely would be as greedy. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly and wasn't in a hurry to leave, but he turned to walk towards Demon King Icefeather. As his figure plunged, Jian Wushuang's martial art motion was immediately revealed flawlessly. In a short period of time. Haha. Demon King Icefeather, excuse me for not keeping you company. Jian Wushuang's voice was still reverberating in the void nearby, but his figure had already disappeared before everyone's eyes. Demon King Icefeather looked cold as he stood in the void. He watched the direction which Jian Wushuang traveled in and he creased his eyebrows slightly. This Jian Wushuang should be around the same as me in terms of power. However, his martial art motion is too creepy. Demon King Icefeather recalled the instance when Jian Wushuang had fought against him earlier. It was mostly the speed of that instant and his martial art motion. Such a creepy and terrifying martial art motion. It could really be known as the #1 martial art motion among universe gods. Plus, he does qualify to be listed in the 5th place on Universe God ranking list. Demon King Icefeather said and then left immediately. Very soon, on the 2nd level of the cave, many universe gods received the news and found that Jian Wushuang had obtained the 4th white blaze fruit. At the same time, they found out that Demon King Icefeather had fought. Although there wasn't victory or defeat in the battle, Demon King Icefeather admitted that Jian Wushuang had the fighting power of the 5th place on Universe God ranking list. A mad fight was still continuing. Occasionally, there would be white blaze fruits coming to the world. Every time the fruit came to the world, there would be a huge movement to attract all the universe gods. As time flew past, it already became the 10th day since everyone had entered the 2nd level of the cave. The breeze blew slightly and it was piercingly cold. The originally crimson space became even more terrifying. In the air, there was even a faint roar. Jian Wushuang wore a red robe that transformed from blood-feather reincarnation armor. He carried his sword on his back and walked forward slowly in the void. It has been 10 days and it has been 12 times since the white blaze fruits came into the world. Every time, there have been 2 pieces or even 3 pieces altogether. Then, out of the white blaze fruits that were found on the 2nd level, there were 29 pieces in total. In other words, there were 21 white blaze fruits that would be born one after another, Jian Wushuang muttered. 12 births and 12 fights. But in the 12 fights, he only managed to get 1 white blaze fruit during the 4th fight. As for the other fights, he didn't manage to get there in time. Then, the total of white blaze fruits in his hands was only 4. To get white blaze fruits in the cave, it doesn't only rely on one's power, luck plays a great factor too. No wonder a lot of universe gods who aren't that strong still opt to enter the cave. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. Just then, Hong! A fierce aura suddenly erupted. The bolt of aura shook the heavens and earth. Then, it suddenly formed into waves and spread terrifyingly. In a short time, it spread up to 100 million miles away. One should know that the birth of white blaze fruit during the past 12 times stirred a commotion each time. However, the largest scale only covered a range of 10 million miles. However, the movement covered 100 million miles this time and it was spreading at lightning speed. This movement. Jian Wushuang suddenly lifted his head and looked at the source of the movement. There was an unprecedented joy shimmering in his eyes. It's there. It's very near to me. At most 100,000 miles away, Jian Wushuang clenched his fist and immediately plunged towards the source of the movement without hesitation. He gave full play to his speed. Not only was Jian Wushuang startled by the movement, all universe gods within the coverage of the 1 billion mile range were surprised. This movement is too great. Such a large movement, there must be a lot more white blaze fruits that come to the world. Let's go. Hurry and get over. Hurry. Hurry, I must get there in time. Damn it, too far away. Countless universe gods flowed from every corner like wasps towards the birthplace. Since the 2nd level of the cave had opened, the so-called largest scale fight was going to happen. Chapter 15:15, Crazy Fight for the White Blaze Fruits. Chapter 15:15, Crazy Fight for the White Blaze Fruits. The commotion this time around was indeed too big. It was a lot greater than the commotion from the previous 12 times when the white blaze fruits appeared. Naturally, more universe gods were attracted as well. Among those universe gods, Jian Wushuang was part of the batch of people who was the closest to the point of appearance. He was less than 100 miles away. With such a short distance, by using his speed, Jian Wushuang managed to reach the location in a short time. However, after reaching the location, even Jian Wushuang was shocked by the scene in front of him. On a vast wasteland, the ground had split open due to an explosion. In the void above it, there were 8 floating, bright white lights spread across the area, and what was shrouded inside the white lights were the white blaze fruits. A total of 8 white blaze fruits. Gosh! Jian Wushuang could not help but opened his eyes big. During the 12 appearances previously, 2 fruits had appeared every time. At most, 3 fruits had appeared. However, just then, 8 fruits had appeared at once. It was crazy, really crazy. All the universe gods who rushed to the point of appearance at once went insane when they saw the 8 white blaze fruits. Even Jian Wushuang's eyes were burning with excitement. Snatch! With a flash of shrill light, Jian Wushuang unleashed his fastest speed instantly and 18 shadows appeared at the same time. In the void in the vicinity, there were 7 other people who charged toward the 8 white blaze fruits. All the eyes of the 7 universe gods were dyed scarlet in color and they were using all their strength to head toward the 8 white blaze fruits. However, Due to the differences in their speeds, 4 people were the fastest to arrive at the 8 white blaze fruits. Jian Wushuang was among the 4 people. Collect. With a swing of his big hand, Jian Wushuang put the 2 white blaze fruits that were the closest to him into a Qian Kuan ring with lightning speed. After that, his body appeared in front of the 3rd white blaze fruit in the blink of an eye and he was about to collect it. "That's mine." A shrill voice could be heard. A purple-clothed youth with a strict expression had already lost his senses. With a swing of his hand, he snatched the white blaze fruit away. Moreover, he had also seized another white blaze fruit moments ago. This meant that he had also gotten 2 white blaze fruits at the same time. After seeing what had been done, Jian Wushuang's expression turned grave. His ice-cold eyes shot a glance at the strict-looking youth and he activated his soul power. Ah! The strict-looking youth gave a horrible shriek. While shrieking, his consciousness was completely destroyed. "A normal universe god dares to snatch my item. You are really courting death." Jian Wushuang was filled with murderous aura. With a wave of his hand, he took the strict-looking youth's Qian Kuan ring. By sweeping his consciousness past it, his eyes glowed brilliantly at once. This youth had just collected 2 white blaze fruits. In addition to the 2 white blaze fruits that he had collected as well, this meant that Jian Wushuang had gotten another 4 white blaze fruits. Moreover, it was obvious that the fight for the white blaze fruits had only just begun. Continue snatching. Jian Wushuang locked on to a black-robed old married woman near him. His soul power had already noticed that the black-robed woman had also managed to get a white blaze fruit. 18 shadows appeared and Jian Wushuang appeared in front of the black-robed woman at once. "Jian Wushuang?" "Not good," the black-robed woman was shocked. "Die." Jian Wushuang was filled with murderous intent. His blood mountain sword was extended like a spiritual snake and it was also filled with a small bit of the power of space-time. Hence, the black-robed woman had no time to block it at all and the sword light struck her body. Ah! The black-robed woman spit out a big mouthful of blood on the spot and her aura plunged down. Not dead. Jian Wushuang's eyes squinted slightly. However, he was not too surprised. There were innumerable universe gods with impressive abilities. Although the black-robed woman looked normal and had no reputation, her abilities should be quite close to making it into the universe god ranking list. "Jian Wushuang, I will give the white blaze fruit to you. I shall not participate in this fight anymore." The black-robed woman suppressed her fear and anger. She then tossed out a white light. The white light was the white blaze fruit. Jian Wushuang extended his hand and caught the white light. The 5th fruit. Jian Wushuang was delighted. At that moment, an intense fight by the side attracted Jian Wushuang's attention. In particular, his attention was focused on a plump young man in the intense fight. The 6th white blaze fruit is with this young man. With the flash of a shrill light, Jian Wushuang prepared to head over to snatch the 6th white blaze fruit. However, all of a sudden, buzz! Quietly, the plump young man's eyes became dim. His body also became weak and he started to fall downward. A consciousness attack. Jian Wushuang's eyes turned serious. The consciousness attack was not from him. Swoosh! A strange black shadow appeared beside the body of the plump young man. With a stretch of his hands, he grabbed the plump young man's Qian Kuan ring. As for the 4 universe gods who were originally fighting with the plump young man, they went on to attack the black shadow instinctively after seeing such a scene. However, in the end, the 4 universe gods' eyes turned dim quietly, just like before. What a strong consciousness attack! Jian Wushuang's expression turned grave. Swoosh! 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 Sounds of the wind being disturbed could be heard and many universe gods arrived. Although the fight moments ago could be said to be slow, in actual fact, it was completed hastily. In a short amount of time, the 8 white blaze fruits had all landed into the hands of someone. In particular, 2 people had managed to get 1 white blaze fruit each and had they left a long time ago. As for the remaining 6 fruits, they were with Jian Wushuang and the black shadow which had appeared abruptly. It's Jian Wushuang, who is ranked 5th on the universe god ranking list. As for the other one, it's Xinzhu. Jian Wushuang and Xinzhu. Two experts who are ranked 5th and 6th in the Universe God ranking list respectively are both here. When the Universe Gods who had just arrived saw the two of them standing opposite one another in the void, they were surprised. Naturally, they did not dare to make a move. Shinju. Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes and stared at the black-robed young man in front of him. The black-robed young man was handsome and cold like a demon. Shinju had an extremely infamous reputation in the eternal chaotic world. Before Wu Bei's cave appeared, among the Universe Gods, only the God-destroying king, Zi Dongwang, and demon girl Ling Luo could overpower him. Moreover, in the eyes of many Universe Gods, Shinju was more frightening than the God-destroying king, Zi Dongwang, and Ling Luo. The God-destroying king was recognized as the number one of the Universe Gods. He was powerful, and in a one-to-one match, no one aside from real gods could be his opponent. However, if he were to be besieged by a large number of Universe Gods, say if there were hundreds of Universe Gods fighting him at the same time, he would also have no choice but to escape miserably. However, Shinju was different. Shinju was an expert who was proficient in consciousness attacks. And for those people who were proficient in consciousness attacks, numbers were the least of their worries. For example, since the second level of the cave had opened, the white blaze fruits had appeared 12 times. There were 2 times where Shinju had managed to make it and he had acquired the white blaze fruit in front of countless Universe Gods. Moreover, he stood in his position openly and did not try to escape. As for the hundreds of Universe Gods near him, they could only watch him. No one dared to attack. Chapter 15:16 Shinju. Chapter 15:16 Shinju. The 6th place on the Universe God ranking list, Shinju, who was previously in the 4th place. He's not a person to provoke, Jian Wushuang gasped with admiration. Jian Wushuang, I finally get to meet you, the cold, evil-looking young man, Shinju said. He fixed his cold gaze on Jian Wushuang. But, you're quite a lucky man. There are so many Universe Gods who put up life-and-death fights in the cave but couldn't even get one white blaze fruit, yet you alone got 9 of them. 9. Jian Wushuang has 9 white blaze fruits. He really has 9. He already had 4 white blaze fruits previously. The 8 white blaze fruits that came to the world earlier, he got 5 of them alone. Although the surrounding Universe Gods had only just rushed to the place, they had seen the fight scene earlier and knew that Jian Wushuang got 5 white blaze fruits in the earlier fight. In addition to the 4 that he had had before, he held a total of 9. A total of 9 white blaze fruits was on Jian Wushuang. The surrounding Universe Gods looked at Jian Wushuang with burning gazes. Jian Wushuang could feel the greed in the Universe Gods' eyes clearly. I have to leave immediately. Otherwise, there will be more Universe Gods that gather here. In the end, there might be 100 or even 1,000 Universe Gods that besiege me. Plus, Shinju is here too. Jian Wushuang's face grew dim and he immediately made a decision. One must know just how great the movement was when the 8 white blaze fruits came to the world. There was a large number of Universe Gods rushing over from the surroundings constantly. Run! There was a flash and Jian Wushuang performed the secret skill of flowing light phantom. There were 18 shadows created simultaneously. Jian Wushuang gave full play to his speed and retreated backwards at his maximum speed. Want to run? Move, kill him. Let's do it together. Let's kill him. The surrounding Universe God launched attacks one after another. There were bolts of fierce aura that exploded. Some Universe Gods charged towards Jian Wushuang to pound him, and some stood on the spot but launched an attack at Jian Wushuang from afar. The attacks flooded in at the same time at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang immediately made a huge black tortoise soar from his body as his body stealthily went through and dodged most of the attack. Even when the remaining few strikes hit him, it didn't cause him any damage. With that factor alone, they couldn't stop him. Jian Wushuang. There was suddenly a low bellow. The bellow was like a drumstick that hit Jian Wushuang vigorously. At the same time, Jian Wushuang could only feel the surrounding scenery began to change. Dreamland. Jian Wushuang's face changed and he complimented Shinju's technique from the bottom of his heart. His back was facing Shinju with many Universe Gods obstructing in between. However, Shinju cast Dreamland on him directly through his voice. Break. Jian Wushuang clenched his teeth and an enormous amount of soul power erupted. He instantly shook off the phantasmagoria with his strong mental state. He just shook it off and Jian Wushuang immediately noticed a large number of figures hemming him in. There were about 20 universe gods who had gathered around him and they were launching attack against him. Courting death. Jian Wushuang's voice was cold. He poured out his soul power and formed into soul thorns. They were instantly immersed into the 20 universe gods' bodies. More than half of the 20 universe gods had their consciousnesses vanish. Although the remaining few endured it, their figures were hindered. Consciousness attack. Jian Wushuang is also good at consciousness attacks and his consciousness attacks are so powerful. The remaining universe gods looked surprised. Vroom. A fierce force suddenly exploded. Jian Wushuang immediately lifted his head but he noticed that Xinju had appeared somewhere above him. At the same time, there were two tall figures that had substantiated. Jian Wushuang, die. Xinju's voice was cold and the two tall figures suddenly moved. The two tall figures were two huge headless warriors. They were in black armor, holding long speed in their hands as they dove downwards. When they appeared before Jian Wushuang, the two headless warriors stabbed with the long spears in their hands and pierced two big holes in the void. Jian Wushuang looked solemn and he suddenly exploded his divine power. The power of blood feather reincarnation armor was given full play too. Wow! Wow! The two lightning-like strokes collided with the long spears in the two headless warriors' hands. There were two low thuds and Jian Wushuang's figure shrunk by a dozen zhong. Such strong power! Jian Wushuang looked at the two headless warriors in astonishment. After one exchange, he could tell that the two headless warriors were not any weaker than a real god. The two headless warriors joining forces were like fighting power of two real gods. Hong. The two headless warriors continued to attack Jian Wushuang with soaring arrogance. Humph. Jian Wushuang harumphed coldly and the 18 shadows moved at the same time, taking two simple turns in the void followed by a sprint. It was extremely creepy. It shuttled through the gap between the two headless warriors and appeared before Xinju. This martial art motion? Xinju's face grew grave. Jian Wushuang was staring at Xinju with his bright, sparkly eyes. Xinju flung himself into consciousness attack. Disregarding that it's a consciousness attack, his close combat skill is definitely not strong. 10,000 shadows. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. The strokes of sword light swung out at the same time. The sky was filled with hundreds of sword shadows at that very moment, like a sea of swords. Then, it engulfed Xinju within. But then, Xinju gave full play to his strong consciousness powers, which combined with his divine powers flawlessly. Suddenly, hualala. Strokes of black, flowing lights flashed like long spears and collided with sword lights that Jian Wushuang had cast. There was a clashing sound continuously. Jian Wushuang's 10,000 shadows were blocked by Xinju at ease. You live up to your reputation of the 6th place on Universe God ranking list. Very impressive, but I have no time to play around with you. Jian Wushuang smirked coldly. Then, his figure suddenly retreated. He turned around and plunged into the void far away. You can't run away. Xinju let out a roar and then there was a pair of creepy black wings that appeared from nowhere. The pair of black wings were formed entirely by Xinju's consciousness power. His divine power spread, hualala. Xinju turned into a black flowing light and pierced the void to chase after Jian Wushuang. The speed that he was plunging at wasn't much slower than Jian Wushuang. The two figures, one running and one chasing, disappeared before everyone's eyes very soon. Chapter 1517, Favorite Person. Chapter 1517, Favorite Person. The speed at which Jian Wushuang and Xinju were fighting was too fast. Moreover, the two of them were very powerful. Although there were many universe gods near them, no one could interfere. After seeing one of them chasing the other, a big portion of the universe gods followed as well. However, some of the universe gods stayed behind and chose not to follow. Too strong. Be it Jian Wushuang or Xinju, they are not people that we can stop. Hence, it will be almost impossible to snatch white blaze fruits from them. There are so many universe gods. Even if Zhen Wushuang is really killed in the end, the white blaze fruits will definitely not fall into my hands. Forget it. For the universe gods who did not give chase, most of them were shocked by the abilities of Zhen Wushuang and Xin Zhu. However, although they did not give chase, they sent a message at once to spread the case to the outside world. In no time, countless universe gods in the cave were astonished. On the island outside the cave, in the big hall, many almighties, and the experts representing the various forces, gasped continuously when they received the news. One person has obtained a total of 9 white blaze fruits. This Zhen Wushuang is really greedy. This cannot be called greedy. We can only say that his luck is good. After all, how can one not take it when something good is placed in front of him? No matter what, this Zhen Wushuang has now become a target of criticism of everyone, and he is also the favorite person of all the universe gods. Favorite person. Indeed, Zhen Wushuang was a popular person. From the time that Wu Bei's cave had appeared to the current moment, quite a number of white blaze fruits had appeared as well. However, apart from Zhen Wushuang, the luckiest person had only been able to acquire 3 white blaze fruits. However, Zhen Wushuang possessed 9 white blaze fruits. Hence, it would be strange if the universe gods who did not acquire even 1 white blaze fruit were not envious of him. Lei Chao, your lineage of star has made it big this time round, a real god who was beside Lei Chao jeered. It is still too early to say this now. Although Zhen Wushuang has obtained 9 white blaze fruits, we still don't know if he will be able to bring those white blaze fruits out, Lei Chao said earnestly. You're right, the real god shook his head as well. With 9 white blaze fruits, the universe gods in the cave will definitely try to kill him with all their might. Even the monsters in the top 10 of the universe god ranking list will want to kill him. Under such circumstances, it will be difficult for him to bring all 9 white blaze fruits out. If I were Zhen Wushuang, I would be slightly smarter and give up a few white blaze fruits. With that, nothing would happen to me. Many experts in the big hall were having a discussion, and most of them had a relaxed expression. Only Lei Chao was extremely anxious. Zhen Wushuang. Lei Chao had sent a message to Zhen Wushuang. Remember, if the situation is dangerous, you can give up on a few white blaze fruits. To the lineage of star, acquiring 2 or 3 white blaze fruits from this fight is considered good. We don't expect too many of them. Do not throw your life away for the white blaze fruits. I understand, Zhen Wushuang nodded his head. He was very clear about that in his head. If there were no choice, he would give up what was necessary without hesitation. However, at that moment, he had not reached such a state. This Xin Zhu is really persistent. Zhen Wushuang shot a glance behind him. 10,000 miles away from him, Xin Zhu was flapping a pair of black wings that he had created using his power of consciousness, and he was still giving chase. Although he was unable to catch up to Zhen Wushuang also found it difficult to lose him. As for the other universe gods, Zhen Wushuang had lost them at the back. I have already unleashed the first stage of the secret skill of dragon blood. However, this is only enough to ensure that he doesn't catch up to me. To lose him completely, I would need to use the second stage of the secret skill of dragon blood, Zhen Wushuang muttered. However, the key point was that it was not easy to use the second stage of the secret skill of dragon blood. After all, it would deplete a huge amount of divine power. By maintaining it for just a short period of time, he would exhaust almost all of his divine power, and even the recovery ability of the King of Venomous Worms would be unable to recover his divine power in a short amount of time. In an environment like this cave, as soon as his divine power was completely depleted, it would definitely become a disaster for him. If it's just Xin Zhu alone, it'll still be all right. However, the problem is, as Zhen Wushuang was thinking, his eyes turned serious abruptly. He had sensed a powerful aura that had appeared within the detecting range of his soul power. That was a purple-haired young man with a stern face, and his aura was a lot more powerful than the universe gods, including Xin Zhu that Zhen Wushuang had seen previously. That's Zidong Wang. Zhen Wushuang's expression turned unusually ugly. Xin Zhu alone was already very difficult to deal with. At that moment, Zidong Wang, who was even more difficult to deal with than Xin Zhu, had appeared. It should be known that Zi Dongwang was a super monster who ranked second on the universe god ranking list, and he was only second to the god-destroying king who ranked first. Haha. Looks like my luck is not too bad. Zi Dongwang's hearty, loud laughter reverberated across the whole horizon. His eyes had already locked onto Jian Wushuang. There was also a purple, evil aura around his body which caused his speed to become very fearsome. When he unleashed his speed, it would be slightly faster than Jian Wushuang and Xinju's. Oh no, Jian Wushuang started to panic. He had seen Zi Dongwang's information thoroughly and knew very well that with his current abilities, he would be unable to compete with Zi Dongwang. To make matters worse, if Zi Dongwang and Xinju were to team up, he would have no choice but to escape shamefully. Zi Dongwang, Jian Wushuang started to speak, let's do a trade. If I give you 3 white blaze fruits, you will leave straight away. Deal? 3 fruits. Zi Dongwang was astonished. He would be given 3 white blaze fruits if he left. Hence, Jian Wushuang could be said to be very generous. Jian Wushuang, you are smart. However, what I want is not merely 3 but 6 white blaze fruits. If you agree to this, I will leave straight away, Zi Dongwang said loudly. 6 fruits. Zi Dongwang, you are too greedy. Jian Wushuang's eyes turned cold. He had finally acquired 9 white blaze fruits after risking his life in Wu Bei's cave. At that moment, Zi Dongwang didn't need to do anything but leave. However, for that, he asked for 6 white blaze fruits. This was not just greedy, it was absolutely crazy. No deal. Then don't blame me. Zi Dongwang laughed coldly. The distance between him and Jian Wushuang was becoming shorter. Zi Dongwang, Jian Wushuang is not weak. If you don't team up with me, you alone might be unable to kill him. Xinju's voice could be heard abruptly. Xinju, what are you trying to say? Zi Dongwang looked over. Very simple. If you and I team up, this Jian Wushuang will die for sure. After that, the 9 white blaze fruits shall be equally split between us. At the very least, you would get 5 and I would give 4, Xinju said. Temph, I have already said. I want 6 white blaze fruit. Zi Dongwang bellowed. You are really unreasonable. 6 white blaze fruits it shall be then, but give me the 3 remaining white blaze fruit. Xinju said. No problem, Zi Dongwang nodded his head. The 2 experts had reached a consensus. Chapter 1518 White-Robed Swordsman. Chapter 1518 White-Robed Swordsman. Jian Wushuang, you can't escape. Die. Zi Dongwang and Xinju had soaring murderous intentions and Zi Dongwang was constantly approaching Jian Wushuang. Big trouble. Jian Wushuang's eyebrows were tightly knitted but suddenly. Huh! Jian Wushuang's expression changed and there was delight in his eyes. He could clearly feel that in the void within 10,000 miles of him was a figure in a white robe flying over. Through his soul power, he could see the features of the figure in white robe clearly. It's him. Jian Wushuang was delighted and he immediately switched directions without hesitation. He plunged towards the figure in the white robe. Very soon, he appeared before the figure in white robe. Haha, Duan Lingfeng, long time no see. Jian Wushuang laughed heartily. Duan Wushuang, it's really you. The man in the white robe who carried a saber on his back lifted his head to look at Jian Wushuang. Then, the corners of his lips lifted into a smile too. Duan Lingfeng. He was a genius that Jian Wushuang had met in the dangerous ancient Star Sea on his way to the 10 cultivation sanctuaries back then, and they were quite close. Back in ancient Star Sea, Jian Wushuang had saved the 2 people that Duan Lingfeng was escorting while Duan Lingfeng joined had forces with Jian Wushuang to resolve Jian Wushuang's crisis once. They had given a favor from one to another and they were both geniuses. Hence, they appreciated one another. After they passed through ancient Star Sea, they parted ways as they had their own agendas. After a few thousand years, Jian Wushuang never thought that he would meet Duan Lingfeng again in Wu Bei's cave, and they happened to meet at a time when he needed help. You need help. Duan Lingfeng stood there with a faint smile. He had already noticed the existence of Zi Dongwang and Xinju from behind. Of course, I do. Jian Wushuang broke into a smile and he stopped next to Duan Lingfeng. The second place on Universe God ranking list, Zi Dongwang, and the 6th place on Universe God ranking list, Xin Zhu. Duan Lingfeng fixed his gaze on the two people who were chasing them from afar. There was light glistening in his eyes, and at the very next moment, rumble. A terrifying sword intention suddenly erupted and soared up above 9th heaven. The surrounding heaven and earth was drowned in a sea of sword intention. Jian Wushuang stood next to Duan Lingfeng. He was clear about the feeling of the sword intention, and his pupils contracted. This bolt of sword intention. I see, Jian Wushuang understood then. Zi Dongwang and Xin Zhu who were chasing them suddenly stopped. Such strong sword intention. This bolt of sword intention seems to be able to tear everything down in heaven and earth. It struck fear into me. Zi Dongwang creased his eyebrows as he looked over at Duan Lingfeng. White-robed, carrying a saber on his back, a strong sword intention. Zi Dongwang and Xin Zhu immediately knew the person's identity. You're the white-robed swordsman on the 3rd place on Universe God ranking list? Zi Dongwang sounded cold. You are the one who defeated demon girl Ling Luo? Xin Zhu's face grew unusually solemn. The birth of Wu Bei's cave had led to a fight and massacre among countless universe gods. There were also many unfamiliar experts who got listed on Universe God ranking list. Among the unfamiliar experts, the mysterious white-robed swordsman was the strongest. He defeated demon girl Ling Luo head-on and got listed on the 3rd place on Universe God ranking list, right behind God-destroying King and Zi Dongwang. However, it had been a while since the white-robed swordsman had defeated Ling Luo and no one knew his real name. Even on Universe God ranking list, he was known as the white-robed swordsman. Then, the white-robed swordsman appeared before them in person. The 3rd place on Universe God ranking list, Duan Lingfeng. That's really impressive, Jian Wushuang teased. He knew that Duan Lingfeng was a true genius back when they were at ancient Starsea, and even King of Venomous Worms admired him. After a few thousand years, Duan Lingfeng's power had obviously improved a lot more. Aren't you in the 5th place yourself? Duan Lingfeng smiled faintly. One should know that when he first met Jian Wushuang at ancient Starsea, although Jian Wushuang had showed shocking talent, his wasn't strong in power. Back then, Jian Wushuang was only a universe god in the 1st heaven. But then, he was one of the top few among all universe gods in eternal chaotic world. In term of improvement speed, Jian Wushuang was slightly faster than he was. White-robed swordsman, the one that we want to fight is Jian Wushuang. It has nothing to do with you. If you want the white blaze fruit, wait until we kill Jian Wushuang and we will share them with you. What do you think? Zi Dongwang looked at Duan Lingfeng and said. Duan Lingfeng looked at Zi Dongwang coldly. Firstly, I am not interested in the white blaze fruit. I came to the cave simply to fight with other expert. Secondly, Jian Wushuang is my friend. Ever since cultivation, I have not had many friends but Jian Wushuang in one of them. If you want to kill him, it means that you want to kill me. The moment he said that, Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows and he felt touched. But Zi Dongwang and Xin Zhu's faces grew grave. It seems like a lost cause. We can only fight. Zi Dongwang said in a low voice. You want to fight? Who's afraid? Jian Wushuang smiled faintly while Blood Mountain's sword in his hands quivered vigorously. Previously, it had been only him alone. He could only run away when he was fighting against Zi Dongwang and Xin Zhu. But then, he had Duan Lingfeng's assistance. He wasn't afraid of the two of them. I only came here with the intention to fight against experts. Xin Zhu is only in the 6th place on the Universe God ranking list. I am not interested in him. My opponent will be Zi Dongwang, Duan Lingfeng said. If so, I shall leave Zi Dongwang to you and I shall take care of Xin Zhu, Jian Wushuang said with a smile. Millimeter, Duan Lingfeng nodded faintly. After they came to a mutual understanding, swoosh, Duan Lingfeng took action first. Rumble. A terrifying sword intention had flooded into the entire universe. Duan Lingfeng's figure turned illusionary and appeared before Zi Dongwang while the saber behind his back was instantly out of the scabbard. The 11th. Heaven and earth grew dim. In the boundless darkness, a brilliant crimson sword light suddenly descended. Looking at the crimson sword light, even Zi Dongwang's pupils shrunk. He immediately brought out his divine power and concentrated on his palms. He was wearing a pair of purple gloves and there was purple light soaring up into the sky. Purple glory sky collapse. Hong. A terrifying power suddenly exploded. As Duan Lingfeng was fighting with Zidong Wang, Zhen Wushuang moved too. Xin Zhu, during the earlier fight, both you and I had scruples. Now, let's fight again. Zhen Wushuang's voice reverberated. Humph. Who is afraid? I happen to want to take back my ranking, 5th place on the Universe God ranking list. It's mine. Xin Zhu was raging in anger. A fierce consciousness swept out and suddenly became 2 tall headless warriors before him. Swoosh. Swoosh. The 2 headless warriors held long spears in their hands while they stepped in the void and charged towards Zhen Wushuang. Chapter 1519, 1 against 2. Chapter 1519, 1 against 2. Boom. Boom. 2 shocking noises could be heard. The 2 headless soldiers had already appeared in front of Zhen Wushuang. They then extended their long spears. Its power was impressive. Mph, you're not the only one who knows consciousness attacks. Zhen Wushuang gave a cold mph. A huge amount of soul power burst forth and a giant golden divine ape rose up. Similarly, the golden divine ape carried a long sword. With a shrill roar, it moved toward the 2 headless soldiers. Piss off. The long sword swept past the area rashly. As the stroke contained a shocking amount of strength, it pushed back the 2 headless soldiers at the same time. After that, the golden divine ape took 1 step and plunged toward Xin Zhu. If 2 headless soldiers are unable to stop you, how about 3? Xin Zhu's eyes turned cold and gloomy. After his speech, another headless soldier appeared in the void in front of him. In addition to the 2 headless soldiers previously, there were a total of 3 headless soldiers. Rumble. The 3 headless soldiers gave off amazing power and surrounded Zhen Wushuang's golden divine ape. They then attacked at the same time and gave Zhen Wushuang more pressure. This Xin Zhu is really powerful. Zhen Wushuang could not help but exclaim. It should be known that every headless soldier had the fighting capabilities of a real god. Hence, 3 headless soldiers were equivalent to 3 real gods teaming up, which put Zhen Wushuang under a lot of pressure. At that moment, haha, this place is really lively. Laughter could be heard and a silver-armored young man could be seen speeding over from a distance away. Around this battlefield, there were a few universe gods present. However, those universe gods were observing from a distance and they did not dare to go over. After all, the ones fighting were the monsters in the top 10 of the universe god ranking list. Without sufficient power, they wouldn't dare to participate in such a fight. And at that very moment, the silver-armored young man plunged over fearlessly. Naturally, he had absolute confidence in his own abilities. It's universe god Liu Ying. Zhen Wushuang's eyes could not help but narrow. Liu Ying. Xin Zhu also looked toward him. Universe god Liu Ying was ranked 7th in the universe god ranking list, which was just after Zhen Wushuang and Xin Zhu. By including Duan Lingfeng and Zidong Wang, who were by the side, out of the 10 monsters who were in the top 10 of the universe god ranking list, 5 of them were present. Liu Ying, you must be here for the white blaze fruit, right? Xin Zhu spoke. Of course, universe god Liu Ying laughed. Since that's the case, you and I should team up and kill this Zhen Wushuang. As for the 9 white blaze fruits that he has, we shall split them among us after killing him. Deal? Xin Zhu said. All right. Universe god Liu Ying nodded his head without hesitation. At that moment, everyone in the cave knew that Zhen Wushuang alone possessed 9 white blaze fruits. Hence, universe god Liu Yang showed himself since his objective was also Zhen Wushuang. Let's do it. Kill. Xin Zhu was filled with murderous intent. Universe god Liu Yang also transformed into a silver, fluttering light and charged into the battlefield like lightning. Another one. Zhen Wushuang's face turned cold. However, he was not fearful in the slightest bit. With a shift of his body, 18 shadows appeared immediately. His body also became abnormal. Haha. Zhen Wushuang, the experts on the higher end of the Vientiane Tower believed that your martial art motion was number 1 among the universe gods. However, I, Liu Ying, am the first person to be dissatisfied with that. Today, I wish to see exactly how impressive your martial art motion is." Universe God Liu Yang gave a loud laugh. With a change of the silver, fluttering light that he had transformed into, the light transformed into many layers and countless silver, fragmentary shadows appeared in the universe. These shadows were also extremely strange. Martial art motion was what Universe God Liu Yang was the most proficient in. Before Jian Wushuang appeared, he was recognized as the number one among the universe gods in terms of martial art motion. At that moment, he had come across Jian Wushuang. Firstly, he wished to get the white blaze fruits from Jian Wushuang. Secondly, he wished to have a showdown with Jian Wushuang. Bring it on. Jian Wushuang's eyes shone with harsh light. His body movements bypassed the small gaps between the three headless soldiers easily, and he headed toward the layers of silver light. He attacked with his Blood Mountain sword abruptly, and the golden divine ape which shrouded his body also launched an attack. As for Universe God Liu Ying, his hands were each carrying a big, silver hammer, and he attacked with lightning speed. Bump, 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 bump. Intense sounds of thunder could be heard continuously. Initially, the sounds of collision had come from one part of the void. However, in the next moment, it came from tens of miles away from the ground, and this opened up a big hole in the ground. After that, the sound came from a mountain, and the mountain had also split open. It was too fast. Their movement speed was too fast, and their martial art motion was also extremely strange. Among the universe gods who were observing the battle from a distance, most of them revealed a shocked expression. They were totally unable to see Jian Wushuang and Universe God Liu Ying's figure clearly. What they could see was the strange golden, fragmentary shadow left behind by the golden divine ape that shrouded Jian Wushuang's body. However, as number 6 on the Universe God ranking list, Shinju could see everything clearly. Die. Jian Wushuang and Universe God Liu Ying had just clashed with one another head-on once. All of a sudden, they heard explosive sounds near them. The three big, headless soldiers had already appeared beside Jian Wushuang, and the three long spears headed toward him at the same time. Mitch, although your headless soldiers are powerful, their bodies are too big and they are too clumsy. Therefore, they are unable to touch me, Jian Wushuang laughed disdainfully. With a strange movement of his body, he circled around the three headless soldiers easily. The long spears of the three headless soldiers were totally unable to touch Jian Wushuang's clothes. Jian Wushuang was standing together with Universe God Liu Ying like before. Jian Wushuang, you dare to underestimate me? Shinju's eyes were filled with flames of fury. After that, the three headless soldiers swung their arms with great strength. The long spears on their hands were thrown out at once, and they aimed at Jian Wushuang. The speed of throwing was a lot faster than the moving speed of the three headless soldiers. While Jian Wushuang was still fighting with Universe God Liu Ying, the three long spears were thrown with lightning speed. What? Jian Wushuang's expression changed. His body then writhed strangely, and he avoided the paths of the three spears. However, the moment he avoided the long spears, Universe God Liu Ying found an opening. Ha ha, Jian Wushuang, eat my hammer attack. Universe God Liu Ying was laughing loudly. At the same time, both his hands held a big hammer. Meteor Heavenly Hammer, boom. A silver thunderbolt descended with lightning speed abruptly. Faced with the hammer attack, Jian Wushuang was unable to dodge. Moreover, he had also failed to use his sword principles in time to block the attack. Hence, he could only use the Blood Mountain sword to block. Bam! With a loud noise, Jian Wushuang's body was sent flying to the ground like a meteorite. In the end, he crashed into the ground, creating a big hole. However, not long after the big hole appeared, rustle. An enormous amount of crimson flames burst forth abruptly. The crimson flames had an astonishing temperature which burnt the ground to ashes. At the core of the crimson flames, a figure appeared. It was Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang just then was like an emperor of the Sea of Fire. Chapter 1520 Retreat. Chapter 1520 Retreat. Under my meteor heavenly hammer, he wasn't injured at all. Universe God Liu Ying floated in the void as he looked at Jian Wushuang. He noticed that Jian Wushuang's, who was crowned among the Crimson Sea of Fire at that very moment, aura had grown even stronger than before. Kill. Among the Crimson Sea of Fire, a ghostly figure soared up and 18 shadows were cast simultaneously. 10,000 shadows. Jian Wushuang wielded his sword at lightning speed. The sword lights crossed wantonly and flooded in to engulf Universe God Liu Ying. Haha, come on. Universe God Liu Ying let out a burst of hearty laughter and his aura started churning. The pair of huge silver hammers burst out silver light. Suddenly, it continuously bombarded him with attacks. Bang, 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 bang. As they fought in madness, there were countless shadows left in the void. Jian Wushuang's speed and strength are much better than before. Universe God Liu Ying's pupils contracted. Previously, when he was fighting against Jian Wushuang head-on, they had been evenly matched. However, when Jian Wushuang had performed Scarlet Kingdom, he had felt the increase in pressure. Especially in terms of martial art motion, Jian Wushuang was really one notch faster. Liu Ying, step aside. There was suddenly a deep voice. Universe God Liu Ying didn't hesitate but retreated immediately from the silver flowing light. Jian Wushuang quickly lifted his head and he instantly noticed Xin Zhu, who had burst out a terrifying aura from afar. Jian Wushuang, try to take this. Xin Zhu's face was distorted in agony. Before him, it was overcast with black fog. The entire heaven and earth were covered in boundless darkness. The black fog was like widely opened mouths that were going to swallow Jian Wushuang. The coverage of the black fog was too huge and Jian Wushuang had no way to shake it off. Die. 9-weight destruction. Rumble. A terrifying consciousness charged towards Jian Wushuang. The consciousness attack was like a huge millstone that was crushing Jian Wushuang without any pattern. Plus, there wasn't only one millstone but there was a total of 9 millstones and one was stronger than the others. It was Xin Zhu's strongest move, 9-weight destruction. Jian Wushuang looked stony-faced and the huge dark tortoise had already surfaced. Then, one millstone after another hit his body. Bang, 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 bang. The former 8 attacks, Jian Wushuang had forcefully withstood them with his strong yet tenacious soul power. In the 9th strike, which was the last strike, the most terrifying strike of consciousness crushed over. Ah! Jian Wushuang let out a shrill scream at the hit. He felt an unprecedented sharp pain in his soul and it was as though his head was going to explode. However, the sharp pain only continued for a short while before it subsided. Jian Wushuang was still standing in the void but his face was red and his body was covered in sweat. He lifted his head again after a good while. He then smirked coldly. Xin Zhu, your consciousness attack is really scary but it's a pity that it can't kill me. Xin Zhu remained silent and his face grew grave. I performed 9-weight destruction with my all. Even one with ordinary real god's consciousness strength would find it hard to withstand but Jian Wushuang withstood it forcefully. His consciousness is this strong. But he didn't know that Jian Wushuang's consciousness couldn't be actually considered as strong. It was merely capped at the limit of a universe god. He had yet to reach real god's level. However, Jian Wushuang's consciousness had already transformed into soul long ago and his soul power was at a much higher level and much more tenacious by a few folds compared to consciousness. His soul power was especially greater in terms of its tenacity. Xin Zhu's technique could kill an ordinary real god's consciousness but it couldn't kill Jian Wushuang's soul, which was only at the level of the limit of a universe god. Xin Zhu, universe god Liu Ying, what other techniques do you have? Use them all. Jian Wushuang's imposing manner had recovered to its peak again. His gaze was cold as he glanced. Xin Zhu and universe god Liu Ying were standing side by side as their eyebrows tightly knitted. Liu Ying, I've performed my strongest unique skill but I still can't kill him. How about you? Do you have any other techniques? Xin Zhu asked. I do have it, but even if I perform it, it won't kill him. Universe god Liu Ying shook his head and replied. We're in trouble. Xin Zhu and universe god Liu Ying went silent. Just then. Hong. A terrifying roar suddenly burst into the void not too far away. At the same time, there were 2 bolts of earth-shattering power that spread. The two bolts of power struck fear into both Xinzhu and universe god Liu Ying. Xinzhu and universe god Liu Ying immediately looked towards the other side of the battlefield. Their pupils contracted the moment they saw the scene. On the battlefield, Duan Lingfeng and Zi Dongwang had already separated. However, Zi Dongwang at that moment, his hair was messy, he looked pale and there was even blood at the corners of his lips. He was obviously in a fix. Duan Lingfeng, on the other hand, his status was still at his peak and his aura was soaring into high sky. He was obviously in a better position than Zi Dongwang. Zi Dongwang, you who are on the second place on Universe God ranking list, your power is only at such level. A cold voice was heard from Duan Lingfeng and it reverberated through the universe. Bastard. Zi Dongwang clenched his teeth but he could do nothing about it. Xinzhu and universe god Liu Ying was at a loss for words. The scene before them was obvious. In the earlier battle, the one at a disadvantage was Zi Dongwang. But he was on the second place on universe god ranking list. Xinzhu, Liu Ying, they two of you joined forces but couldn't kill Zhen Wushuang? Zi Dongwang noticed the outcome on the other side too and immediately reprimanded. Xinzhu and universe god Liu Ying exchanged a look. Both of them felt bitter in their hearts. Damn it. Zi Dongwang cursed and glared at Zhen Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng. Let's go. Zi Dongwang left directly while Xinzhu and universe god Liu Ying didn't stay either but left immediately. Although the three of them had joined forces, they obviously couldn't do anything about the teaming up of Zhen Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng. Hence, they could only leave. As the three of them walked away, the shocking battle that had involved 5 universe gods in the top 10 on universe god ranking list finally ended. Zhen Wushuang, are you okay? Duan Lingfeng kept his saber and appeared before Zhen Wushuang. I'm okay. Zhen Wushuang smiled faintly and said, Duan Lingfeng, congratulations. You defeated Zi Dongwang. From the looks of it, on the latest universe god ranking list that Vientiane Tower just released, you could be in the second place. I merely have the upper hand by a slight bit. If I really want to defeat him, I'm still a bit short. Duan Lingfeng shook his head. He was really stronger than Zi Dongwang but not by much. Regardless, thank you once again. I owe you one, Zhen Wushuang said with a smile. Chapter 1521, Satisfied. Chapter 1521, Satisfied. Indeed. If he hadn't come across Duan Lingfeng this time round, Zhen Wushuang would be in big trouble. Perhaps he could think of a way to survive in the hands of Zi Dongwang, Xinzhu and universe god Liu Ying. However, he would definitely need to give up his white blaze fruits. Duan Lingfeng, you are completely uninterested in the white blaze fruit. Zhen Wushuang looked at Duan Lingfeng. That's right, Duan Lingfeng nodded his head indifferently. If that's the case, I shall not give you white blaze fruits. I have armor here with me and I obtained it from universe god Xiong Fu previously. Please take it. Zhen Wushuang took out some black armor. The black armor was a real god-level chaos unique treasure and it was universe god Xiong Fu's treasure to protect his body with. After seeing the black armor, Duan Lingfeng frowned. Zhen Wushuang, you should know that I helped you not for the white blaze fruit, and not for this armor. I know, Zhen Wushuang laughed, however, I still need your help from here on. The stronger you are, the greater your help will be to me. This armor should be able to raise your fighting capabilities slightly. Zhen Wushuang could tell long ago that the divine weapons and defensive armors that Duan Lingfeng used were first-rate universe god-level chaos unique treasures. In spite of that, he was still able to push back Zi Dongwang. If he had real god-level armor, his abilities would definitely rise considerably. You want me to team up with you? Duan Lingfeng looked over. That's right, Zhen Wushuang did not hide the truth. I have 9 white blaze fruits with me now. Hence, I am definitely a popular target. Since so many universe gods in this cave want to kill me and I'm alone, if I were to come across a situation like just now, I would be unable to deal with it. However, if I were to team up with you, it would be different. Duan Lingfeng had been ranked 3rd previously. After his match with Zi Dongwang, it proved that he had abilities to rank 2nd on the universe god ranking list. In the entire cave, probably only the god-destroying king was superior to him. Hence, if Jian Wushuang were to team up with him, he could move around the cave freely. In addition, during my match with Xin Zhu and Universe God Liu Ying just now, I benefited considerably. Next, I have no plans to continue moving around to fight for the white blaze fruits. Instead, I want to find a place to train for a period of time. During the process of my training, I will naturally need an expert like you to protect me. Jian Wushuang emphasized the word expert intentionally. I see. Duan Lingfeng nodded his head and took the black armor immediately. I shall accept this armor. After seeing that, Jian Wushuang revealed a smile. On the second level of the cave, one of the greatest commotions was when a total of 8 white blaze fruits appeared at the same time. This piece of news spread through the whole cave in a moment, just like a hurricane. Other pieces of news that were spread included the shocking match between the 5 experts Jian Wushuang, the white-robed swordsman, Duan Lingfeng, Zi Dongwang, Xin Zhu, and Universe God Liu Ying. These 5 experts were part of the top 10 of the Universe God ranking list. In particular, Zi Dongwang and the white-robed swordsman were ranked 2nd and 3rd respectively. However, the end result was, during the match between Zi Dongwang and the white-robed swordsman, Zi Dongwang was at a disadvantage. Xin Zhu and Universe God Liu Ying had teamed up and they hoped to kill Jian Wushuang. However, both of them were unable to do anything to Jian Wushuang at all, even after demonstrating all of their tricks. As soon as the news got out, countless universe gods were astonished. In the vast hall outside the cave, many almighties, including the real gods from various forces, also got the news before long. After that, all of them gasped in admiration. This Jian Wushuang's luck is really good. Since he was targeted by Zi Dongwang and Xin Zhu at the same time, even if he didn't die, he would have to give up quite a number of white blaze fruits. That was what I thought at first. However, who could expect him to come across the white-robed swordsman at that critical moment? Moreover, the white-robed swordsman is actually good friends with him. Although Jian Wushuang is a disciple of the lineage of Star, he is good friends with the white-robed swordsman. Could the white-robed swordsman be in the lineage of Star as well? No. The white-robed swordsman is definitely not in the lineage of Star. This point has already been confirmed. Perhaps the both of them got to know one another while they were traveling in the outside world. No matter what, Jian Wushuang has teamed up with the white-robed swordsman. Hence, it will be difficult to get the white blaze fruits from him again. Many experts who were present understood. One was ranked 5th in the Universe God ranking list, while the other one was one of the top 3. Moreover, at that very moment, he had been acknowledged as the number 2. Since the 2 experts had teamed up, not many people in the cave would dare to provoke them. Lei Chao, seems like your lineage of Star is destined to benefit greatly. I agree. Since Jian Wushuang and the white-robed swordsman has teamed up, probably no one in the cave will lay their hands on his 9 white blaze fruits. The real gods were also chatting and laughing wantonly. My lineage of Star does not wish to have great benefits. However, since luck is at the doorstep, we cannot reject it. Lei Chao laughed apathetically and he felt more relaxed. After that, he messaged Jian Wushuang and questioned, Jian Wushuang, what is your status now? I'm all right. The clash with Xin Zhu and Zi Dongwang did not result in any losses. Jian Wushuang replied immediately. How about your good friend, the white-robed swordsman? Lei Chao continued asking. He's with me, Jian Wushuang said. That's great. Lei Chao continued speaking. Jian Wushuang, listen up. Now, you have already obtained 9 white blaze fruits. To the lineage of Star, this is already enough. Don't hope for too much. After all, you are now the target of everyone. Hence, for the time being, you don't need to travel around to fight other white blaze fruits. Please find a place and stay put until this fight comes to a complete end. Ideally, get your good friend to stay with you the whole way. If there is a need, give him a few white blaze fruits. Haha, Lord Lei Chao, don't worry. That good friend of mine has agreed to team up with me. Moreover, he is not the least bit interested in the white blaze fruit. Hence, I gave him the real god-level armor that I obtained from killing universe god Xiong Fu previously. Jian Wushuang giggled. That's for the best. Lei Chao nodded his head and terminated the transmission. On the second level of Wu Bei's cave, Jian Wushuang was sitting down with his legs crossed in the deepest part of a cave, which was situated halfway up a mountain, and was storing Lei Chao's transmission token slowly. Even without Lord Lei Chao saying so, I have no plans to participate in the upcoming fights for the white blaze fruits, Jian Wushuang laughed indifferently. Since the moment of the opening of the second level of the cave to the current point in time, 37 white blaze fruits had appeared. Hence, there were 13 fruits that had not appeared yet. Therefore, the fight was still ongoing. However, Jian Wushuang had no plans to participate. He had already obtained a total of 9 white blaze fruits and was satisfied with that. For the remaining time, he would allow the universe gods to continue fighting for the white blaze fruits. He himself had planned to stay in the mountain all along. As for Duan Lingfeng, he was inside a neighboring cave, refining the real god-level armor. Chapter 1522 Zi Dongwang who was unwilling to accept defeat. Chapter 1522 Zi Dongwang who was unwilling to accept defeat. On the second level of Wu Bei's cave, Zi Dongwang stood side by side with Xin Zhu. As for universe god Liu Ying, he wasn't in the same troop as Zi Dongwang and Xin Zhu originally. Hence, after fighting a battle against Jian Wushuang, he left on his own. Zi Dongwang, did you know you would be defeated by the white-robed swordsman? Xin Zhu asked with his eyebrows tightly knitted. He has the upper hand just by a slight bit. To really defeat me, he doesn't have the ability, Zi Dongwang bellowed. Xin Zhu raised his eyebrows but didn't comment further. However, he sneered in his head. Regardless of if Zi Dongwang was willing to admit it, he wasn't the white-robed swordman's match. That was a fact. If the new Universe God ranking list were to be released, the white-robed swordman's ranking would definitely be before Zi Dongwang's. Humph, this won't end so easily, Zi Dongwang harumphed coldly. What are you planning to do? Xin Zhu looked at him. Isn't the white-robed swordsman strong? I can do nothing about him, but someone else can. When I was fighting against him, I left a tracing mark on him. He can't escape so easily. There was a gleam of light in Zi Dongwang's eyes. The very next moment, he plunged towards the void on the other side. Although Xin Zhu was confused, he followed anyway. The fight for the white blaze fruits continued. Occasionally, there'd be births of white blaze fruits. There were only 2 pieces to 3 pieces at one goal, not like the previous time when 8 white blaze fruits had come to the world at the same time. Even so, the massacre was still mad and there were more deaths that followed. In the blink of an eye, a few days passed. The 50 pieces of white blaze fruits on the second level of the save came to the world and they had their respective owners too. Vroom. In the void, real god Wu Bei's blurry image, which was formed by his consciousness, reappeared. The fight for white blaze fruits on the second level of the cave has already ended. I will give you another 1 month's time. A month later, the third level will be opened. On the third level, which is also the last level, there isn't any white blaze fruit but there's a white blaze fruit tree. Then, the blurry image that had been formed by real god Wu Bei's consciousness vanished into thin air again. In the lofty palace in the cave, there was a great commotion. As expected, there is really a third level. This madman. He saved the white blaze fruit tree for the last level? White blaze fruit tree, that is the most precious thing in the cave. Those white blaze fruits were just fruits that were grown on the white blaze fruit tree. Various experts, including Almighties, were all hot with excitement. White blaze fruit made various Almighties drool, but a white blaze fruit tree made all the Almighties go insane. Many years ago, many Almighties had gotten into a crazy fight and bloody massacre to get the saplings of the white blaze fruit tree. However, it fell into the hands of real god Wu Bei in the end. But it was a mature white blaze fruit tree this time and it was even more precious. 1 month. The universe gods in the cave started preparing themselves. The air was filled with the atmosphere of massacre. The chilliness in the void was bone-piercing. A scrawny, pale-looking young man who looked like a sickly person walked forward slowly. His appearance was extremely frail, but when he walked and passed by the countless universe gods, whoever saw him wanted to immediately run away without hesitation in shock. No one dared to be within a 1,000-mile range of him, let alone block his way or challenge to for a fight. Ever since the young man had come to Wu Bei's cave, he almost never took action, but he had got 3 white blaze fruits. Just then, the pale young man lifted his head. In the void before him, there were 2 figures charging towards him. Very soon, they stopped before him. The 2 figures that descended were Zi Dongwang and Xin Zhu. However, Zi Dongwang, who normally assumed a haughty air, looked rather humble. The way he looked at the young man seemed to have a tinge of reverence too. God-destroying king, long time no see, Zi Dongwang greeted. God-destroying king, Xin Zhu greeted too. God-destroying king. The young man who looked pale and extremely frail was the one in the first place on Universe God ranking list. God-destroying king. He was the number 1 among universe gods without a doubt in eternal chaotic world. Zi Dongwang, Xin Zhu, what's up? God-destroying king glanced at both of them. Something's up, Zi Dongwang replied. I know that you came to Wu Bei's cave because of the Almighty behind incited you to, and the Almighty promised you something too on the premise that you would get sufficient white blaze fruits. But you only have 3 white blaze fruits on hand. It should have yet to reach the criteria that the Almighty requested, right? True, God-destroying king nodded. However, as long as I can get the white blaze fruit tree on the 3rd level, it'll do. White blaze fruit tree? Zi Dongwang smiled faintly. There's only 1 white blaze fruit tree, but there are so many universe gods who want to fight for it. God-destroying king, although you are powerful and you are the number 1 among all universe gods, the other universe gods will not be passive. Most likely, the universe gods will join forces to force you out. Hence, the possibility of you getting the white blaze fruit tree, in the end, isn't high either. Don't beat around the bush. Get straight to the point. God-destroying king's gaze was cold. Let me be frank with you then. I'd like to invite you to join forces with the 2 of us to fight against Zhen Wushuang and the white-robed swordsman. You only need to kill the white-robed swordsman. If you really can't kill him, just tie him down. As for Zhen Wushuang, Xin Zhu and I will take care of him. Zhen Wushuang has a total of 9 white blaze fruits to hand, Zi Dongwang said. You lost to the white-robed swordsman and you want to get rid of him with my hands? God-destroying king glanced at Zi Dongwang. Zi Dongwang's gaze faltered, but he didn't deny it. He had the intention of killing Duan Lingfeng. He was arrogant and boastful. He had no choice before God-destroying king. He could only submit to him. But besides God-destroying king, he wasn't willing to accept that there was another universe god who was stronger than him. 9 white blaze fruits. I want 5 of them, God-destroying king said straightforwardly. 5 pieces. Zi Dongwang's facial expression changed, but he nodded anyway. Deal. Do you know Zhen Wushuang and the white-robed swordsman's current location? God-destroying king asked. Of course I know. We can get there in 1 day with our traveling speed, Zi Dongwang replied. If so, let's depart. God-destroying king sounded cool. Very soon, the strongest formation, made up of God-destroying king, Zi Dongwang and Xin Zhu, was charging in the direction where Zhen Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng were at. However, Zhen Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng had no idea about it. Duan Lingfeng knew that Zi Dongwang left a tracing mark on him and he started to remove it, but he still needed more time. As for Zhen Wushuang, he was at his most critical period. Chapter 1523 Real God Level. Chapter 1523 Real God Level. Halfway up a mountain, inside a provisional cave which had been opened up, Zhen Wushuang was sitting down alone with his legs crossed. On the surface, he looked impervious to desires and passions. However, within the sea of consciousness, his soul fire was burning furiously. The soul and consciousness were different from a cultivator's realm. A cultivator could be in the realm of a universe god. However, his consciousness could have reached the level of a real god's. As for Zhen Wushuang just then, his force of soul was trying to break past the bottleneck to the real god's level. During his early days in the Sky Sword prison, his force of soul had reached the limit of a universe god's. After honing it for another 1,000 years, his soul had achieved the critical stage of making a breakthrough. However, he lacked an opportunity to make a breakthrough. However, A few days ago, during the match between Xin Zhu and universe god Liu Ying, the strongest attack, 9-weight destruction, that Xin Zhu had used, had given his soul an impact that he had never felt before. This impact had caused his soul fire to almost fall apart. However, it was such an instant of life and death that gave rise to an opportunity for him to make a breakthrough. After that fight subsided, he immediately started to meditate in seclusion in the provisional cave that had opened up. After a few days, he reached the critical moment. Whether I fail or succeed will depend on this moment. Jian Wushuang's eyes glowed with a brilliant light. The soul fire in his sea of consciousness was also burning furiously, and the soul power that had accumulated to the limit a long time ago started to try to go past its limit. Boom! With a fierce impact, the bottleneck was destroyed. With that, the soul fire in Jian Wushuang's sea of consciousness started to increase madly at once. I have made a breakthrough. Jian Wushuang was extremely delighted. The flowing soul power in his sea of consciousness also started to rise at an amazing speed. In no time, his transformation ended. Force of soul, real god level. Jian Wushuang clenched his fists tightly. It was not just the force of soul that had risen. It should be known that Jian Wushuang had always been proficient in soul attacks. When he had used his soul attacks previously, his consciousness had not achieved the level of a real god's. However, almost no one could block them. At that very moment, his force of soul had achieved the level of a real god's. If he were to unleash soul attacks again, let's try it. Jian Wushuang laughed nonchalantly and his soul power surged at once. Roar! A furious roar that seemed to appear from an abysmal hell could be heard. A black and big demonic dragon, which released shocking murderous aura, appeared fiercely. This demonic dragon was very powerful. When its body flew past the void, it ripped open the void easily. This power, Jian Wushuang's eyes glowed brilliantly. Haha. That Xin Zhu can use his consciousness to create headless soldiers which have the fighting capabilities of real gods. However, the power of the demonic dragon that I can create using my soul power now is also similar to that of a real god. As for the soul attacks, I have the 18 Azura Hell and secret skill of Tian Yuan. In particular, if I use the secret skill of Tian Yuan with my full power, the soul attack would definitely not be weaker than Xin Zhu's 9-weight destruction. It might even be slightly stronger. Jian Wushuang was over the moon. Among the universe gods, Xin Zhu was recognized by the eternal chaotic world as the universe god with the strongest consciousness attacks. However, at that very moment, Jian Wushuang believed that his own soul attacks were not weaker than Xin Zhu's. In fact, they might even be stronger. Moreover, among his soul attacks, if he were to use the divine ape from the 5-beast soul manipulation knack, he could combine his soul power with his divine power beautifully. Real god-level soul power combined with his divine power. Jian Wushuang's abilities had definitely increased greatly compared to the past. If I were to fight against Xin Zhu and universe god Liu Ying again, I would definitely not be in a difficult situation. Moreover, I might even be able to break both of them one by one. Jian Wushuang laughed apathetically. Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng were sitting by a stone table and drinking wine. Duan Lingfeng, what is the power of this black armor? Jian Wushuang asked casually. Not bad. With this armor, my abilities have risen considerably compared to the past. Especially in the aspect of my divine power, Duan Lingfeng said. The black armor that Duan Lingfeng had obtained was a real god-level chaos unique treasure, and it was similar to Jian Wushuang's bloodfeather reincarnation armor. It also contained a secret skill which could allow one's divine power to rise. Previously, you were able to push back Zi Dongwang even without this piece of armor. But now, I am curious as to whether you have the right to compete with the god-destroying king who is ranked first in the universe god ranking list, Jian Wushuang jeered. No idea, Duan Lingfeng shook his head. I have heard that there is a huge gap between the first and second of the universe god ranking list. However, I have never come across the god-destroying king. If I don't fight with him personally, I will be unable to judge. That's true, Jian Wushuang laughed indifferently and he lifted his wine cup up. Oh! Jian Wushuang frowned abruptly. He had already sensed the 3 shadows which were within the range of his soul power. Duan Lingfeng, Our old friend is here, Jen Wuxuang giggled. Old friend? Zidong Wang? Duan Lingfeng shot a glance toward Jen Wuxuang. He then had a dull expression. Duan Lingfeng could no longer feel interested in Zidong Wang just then. It's him. However, he has brought us a big surprise this time round, Jen Wuxuang chuckled. His soul power had already locked on to one person. That was a pale-looking young man who looked fragile. However, it was this young man that had given Jen Wuxuang a great amount of pressure. Swoosh, swoosh. Jen Wuxuang and Duan Lingfeng plunged out from the cave immediately. They then appeared in the void on the upper end. In front of them, 3 shadows descended. Among the 3 shadows, there was Zidong Wang and Xin Zhu, who Jen Wuxuang was familiar with. There was also that fragile young man. God-destroying king. Both of us were still talking about the God-destroying king just now. However, who would expect him to appear in front of us straight away? Jen Wuxuang had an indifferent expression and he glanced at Duan Lingfeng. Looks like you have an opportunity to fight him. Yes, Duan Lingfeng nodded his head and his eyes shone brilliantly like never before. He had come to Wu Bei's cave in order to fight against experts. At the beginning, he had defeated demon girl Ling Luo, who was ranked 3rd in the universe god ranking list. Previously, he had also fought with Zidong Wang and managed to push him back. At that very moment, he had obtained a real god-level chaos unique treasure and his abilities rose again. Hence, what he yearned for at the moment was to fight with the god-destroying king, the universe god who had been recognized as the #1 among universe god. Duan Lingfeng was filled with fighting intention. Jen Wuxuang was the same as well. My force of soul has just made a breakthrough and my abilities have increased greatly. Thus, I am just about to find someone to test out my abilities. Just then, the 3 of you came. What a coincidence. Jen Wuxuang stuck his tongue out and licked his lips. His eyes were also unusually cold. On the battlefield, swords were drawn and the battle was about to begin. Chapter 1524, Duan Lingfeng, All Out. Chapter 1524, Duan Lingfeng, All Out. In the void, there was a purple-haired elderly casually traveling forward casually and he happened to pass the nearby void where Jen Wuxuang and the others were at. That's it. The purple-haired elderly noticed the 5 figures in the void and suddenly looked surprised. Zidong Wang, Xin Zhu, white-robed swordsman, Jen Wuxuang. The last one is, it's God-destroying king. My God. The purple-haired elderly was astonished at the sight. He could tell that the 5 people in the void before him were obviously in 2 teams. God-destroying king, Zidong Wang and Xin Zhu were in one. Jen Wuxuang and white-robed swordsman were in another one. Breaking news. Breaking news. This is definitely the pinnacle of all the fights in Wu Bei's cave. The purple-haired elderly was excited and he instantly spread the news. In an instant, the entirety of Wu Bei's cave was astonished. In the lofty palace in the outside world. I knew it. I knew Zidong Wang would just give up easily. As expected. Zidong Wang even invited God-destroying king? God-destroying king, he is widely recognized as the #1 universe god. His, supernatural. God-destroying king, Zidong Wang, Xin Zhu teamed up. It is definitely the strongest team in Wu Bei's cave. White-robed swordsman and Jen Wuxuang are really in danger this time. The experts gasped with admiration yet sighed emotionally. In the cave, countless universe gods received the news and were filled with all kinds of thoughts and emotions. Those who were near to the battlefield immediately rushed over at their fastest speeds. A team made of God-destroying king, Zidong Wang and Xin Zhu against Jen Wuxuang and Duan Lingfeng, both could be known as the strongest team in Wu Bei's cave. Naturally, everyone was dying to witness the clash of the 2 strongest teams with their own eyes. In the void, the air was still and frozen entirely. After God-destroying king, Zidong Wang and Xin Zhu appeared, they didn't speak. However, Jen Wuxuang and Duan Lingfeng knew their purpose of their visit. Duan Lingfeng, as you are looking forward to fight against God-destroying king, I shall leave the chance to you. Jen Wuxuang looked at Duan Lingfeng. Are you confident? No, but I can give it a try. Duan Lingfeng looked cold as he withdrew the saber from the scabbard behind his back. A terrifying sword intention spread instantly and it was growing more and more intense. Duan Lingfeng locked his gaze onto God-destroying King. You want to challenge me? Come on, let's do it. God-destroying King looked cold too. As he spoke, he took a huge stride forward and his aura instantly soared to the peak. Just like a primeval beast, he pounded Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng. This aura is pretty impressive. Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes. As the aura burst out, a golden long spear appeared in God-destroying King's hands. The golden long spear was covered in unique golden dragon print. As he wielded it, there was a faint roar of the dragon that reverberated. The entire heaven and earth seemed to be under his feet. The golden long spear was called Bellicose Spear. God-destroying King had an overbearing manner. Fight! Duan Lingfeng's eyes were glistening with sharpness. He roared and took a sudden step. The void under his foot instantly cracked. The 13th. Duan Lingfeng gripped the saber in his hands tightly. Under the flow of divine power, vroom. One towering crimson shadow appeared in the void. A total of 13 crimson blade shadows appeared and every one of them was ferocious. They were strong enough to strike fear into the experts in the top 30 on Universe God ranking list. But at that very moment, after the 13 crimson blade shadows appeared, they suddenly condensed and blended together. They formed a bright, glaring crimson moon. The crimson moon suddenly swung out in silence. Instantly, it spurred the entire heaven and earth to pressure God-destroying King. God-destroying King saw the scene but his gaze was still as cold as before. Just as the crimson moon was slashing down against his body, the golden bellicose spear in his hands suddenly stabbed. It was a casual stab, but it was earth-shattering. Bellicose spear contained an extermination aura. Even Jian Wushuang, Zi Dongwang, and Xin Zhu who were standing far away were palpitating. This is God-destroying King. Any casual move or technique brings about boundless extermination intention. His level of comprehension of extermination doctrine is too high. Zi Dongwang and Xin Zhu saw the scene and gasped in admiration, especially Zi Dongwang. He was arrogant and boastful and he was never willing to admit defeat. However, before God-destroying King, he had no courage to compete at all. It wasn't because he didn't want to challenge God-destroying King, but because their difference was just too vast. Bang! A loud thud. The void where the vigorous battle was happening instantly shattered and formed a scary void storm. In the void storm, Duan Lingfeng shook his body and at that moment, it was as though he became three people and the three Duan Lingfengs were wielding his saber all at the same time. God-destroying King was still standing there coldly but he gripped and the bellicose spear instantly turned into a cyclone and flew out like lightning. Dang! 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 Duan Lingfeng moved backwards but the power in his blade light also made God-destroying King take a step back. You can make me move backwards? With that alone, you are much stronger than Zi Dongwang, God-destroying King said coldly. Duan Lingfeng didn't talk nonsense but looked at God-destroying King solemnly. Suddenly, vroom. A boundless divine power revolved and suddenly exploded from Duan Lingfeng's body. His body increased in size twofold. He was 3 meters tall and there were faint black ripples spreading from him. The entire universe was engulfed in darkness. The originally ferocious aura in Duan Lingfeng went more intense by a notch at that very moment. Zi Dongwang was shocked by the sight. Bastard! When he was fighting with me previously, he never performed these techniques. Zi Dongwang's face was distorted in anger. When Duan Lingfeng was fighting against him, he suppressed him with only swordsmanship and his comprehension towards doctrines. He never performed the secret skills that he was seeing then. It was obvious that Duan Lingfeng held back some power when he fought with him. Swoosh! Duan Lingfeng launched another attack. The 14th. Vroom! In the void covered in darkness, there was a total of 14 crimson blade shadows that appeared from nowhere. The 14 crimson blade shadows suddenly overlapped one another and straightaway slashed. With the flawless combination of massacre doctrine and darkness doctrine among the 9 heaven god doctrines, Duan Lingfeng already burst out his strongest fighting power. Duan Lingfeng, he is really powerful. Jian Wushuang looked at Duan Lingfeng who was going all out and gasped with admiration. Then, He immediately glanced at Zi Dongwang and Xin Zhu before him. Duan Lingfeng and God-destroying King are fighting so ferociously. I can't be so relaxed. Jian Wushuang slightly lifted the corners of his lips. Blood Mountain sword had already appeared in his hands. Chapter 1525, Jian Wushuang's Battle. Chapter 1525, Jian Wushuang's Battle. Shall we begin? At that moment, Zi Dongwang and Xin Zhu looked toward Jian Wushuang. Let's not waste time and kill him now, Xin Zhu spoke coldly. Of course, Zi Dongwang laughed ruthlessly. He then released thick purple light from the purple gloves that he wore. Let's fight. Jian Wushuang giggled and changed his body. Swoosh. 18 shadows appeared at the same time. Kill. Zi Dongwang's eyes glowed with murderous aura and his body moved instantly. As for Xin Zhu, although he was standing in his original position, he was releasing his power of consciousness. In no time, 3 big headless soldiers formed in front of him. Swish, swish, swish. As the shadows glowed continuously, Jian Wushuang appeared in front of Zi Dongwang. Ninth Heaven Stroke. A great amount of sword essence materialized and a nemesis sword descended abruptly. As for Zi Dongwang, with a wave of his big hand, purple light burst forth and before it collided with the nemesis sword, he clenched his right fist fiercely. Break. An unreasonable amount of power was released and the nemesis sword, which carried an enormous amount of sword essence, was dissipated at that moment. The absurd power also forced Jian Wushuang to retreat by a few steps. When Jian Wushuang's body had just regained its posture. Rustle, rustle, rustle. 3 ear-piercing sounds could be heard and 3 dim lights appeared in Jian Wushuang's line of sight. The 3 dim lights were the long spears thrown by the 3 headless soldiers. The speed of the 3 headless soldiers was not fast. However, the speed of the spears that they tossed with their full power was shocking. Jian Wushuang gave a cold shout and with a strange change of his body, the 3 spears passed his body. However, they did not touch any part of him. After that, Jian Wushuang's body turned back to normal in its original position. Jian Wushuang. A loud cry could be heard. Afterward, black mist filled the sky and headed toward Jian Wushuang like the ferocious mouth of a beast. The black mist also contained many consciousness attacks like big millstones with the intention of crushing Jian Wushuang completely. This move again. Jian Wushuang's eyes turned serious. However, he stood still in his position and allowed the 9 consciousnesses to attack him. After the 9 consciousnesses struck Jian Wushuang, he gave a groan and the black mist which filled the sky dissipated soon after. What? Xin Zhu was shocked. Previously, when he had teamed up with Universe God Liu Ying to fight Jian Wushuang, he also used this strongest move of his. In the end, Jian Wushuang was affected greatly and almost killed. However, when he used it again at that moment, Jian Wushuang had actually managed to block it so easily. Do you think that I will suffer under the same move twice? Jian Wushuang laughed coldly. This move of Xin Zhu was indeed fearsome. Previously, Jian Wushuang's force of soul was only at the peak of a universe god. Hence, it would be very difficult for him to block such an attack. However, at that moment, Jian Wushuang's force of soul had already achieved the level of a real god's. If he were to come across the same attack, he could block it easily. So what if you blocked it? You still need to die. Xin Zhu was filled with murderous intent. The 3 giant headless soldiers then stepped into the void and headed straight for Jian Wushuang. I am not interested in you. After shooting a glance at Xin Zhu, Jian Wushuang's soul power surged. Roar, roar, roar. 3 furious roars which shook the heavens could be heard. 3 black demonic dragons shrouded in murderous aura then appeared fiercely. The power of the 3 demonic dragons were astonishing. In an instant, they clashed with the 3 headless soldiers. I shall let them have fun with you. Jian Wushuang chuckled and his eyes locked onto Zi Dongwang, who was in front of him. Zi Dongwang, I heard that you are proficient in close combat fights. Today, let me have a showdown with you. As soon as the words left his mouth, a giant golden divine ape appeared from Jian Wushuang's body. At the same time, a tremendous amount of flames was released, forming a crimson sea of fire, and Jian Wushuang was the emperor of the crimson sea of fire. 5 Beast Soul Manipulation, Nak's strongest divine ape, and the Scarlet Kingdom were used at the same time. What was different from before was that Jian Wushuang's force of soul had achieved the real god level. Hence, when he unleashed the divine ape move, its power was a lot greater than before. At that moment, Jian Wushuang's divine power and soul power combined beautifully. Hence, his fighting capabilities were a lot greater compared to when he had fought Universe God Liu Ying and Xin Zhu. Kill. Jian Wushuang's body moved like lightning. As Zi Dongwang was clad in armor, his body became slightly bigger and his aura was raised to its peak as well. At that moment, the two of them did not hold back. Both of them had unleashed their full power. In no time, both of them clashed head-on. Boom. It was another direct clash. However, Zi Dongwang did not gain the upper hand this time around. His power has risen. Just now, he was inferior to me and I annihilated his sword principles with one palm. However, now, his power is actually equal to mine. Zi Dongwang's expression turned grave. However, his face was glowing with madness. Jian Wushuang, didn't you want to compete with me in a close combat fight? Today, I shall grant you your wish. Zi Dongwang bellowed. Haha, bring it on. Jian Wushuang's eyes were burning with excitement. In no time, both of them fought again. However, this time around, it was a close combat fight. Bump, 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 bump. Shocking sounds of collision echoed across the universe. Jian Wushuang's sword principles, Zi Dongwang's palm skills and fist skills, as well as both of their close combat abilities, were completely unleashed. As for their speeds, they were so fast that no one could keep their eyes on their figures. Boom. A lofty mountain at the side was split open. What followed that was a void that was collapsing 1,000 miles away. Next, many giant sword marks, which covered hundreds of miles, appeared on the ground. Intense. Exciting. Earth-shaking. Their intense fight had reached the climax. Such a crazy clash continued for 10 breaths' time. With the sound of an explosion, the two shadows separated again. Both of them then stood in their respective positions with thousands of miles in between them. As for both of them at that very moment, Jian Wushuang's hair was slightly messy and there were 2 clear palm prints on his bloodfeather reincarnation armor which were left behind by Zi Dongwang. Zi Dongwang was no better off. The armor on his body had 2 sword marks. Moreover, there was a bit of blood at the corners of his mouth. Haha, Zi Dongwang, is your close combat ability only like this? Jian Wushuang's hearty laughter could be heard. You left 2 sword marks on my body and I have also left 2 palm prints on your body. Hence, we are the same. What is it that you are proud of? Zi Dongwang bellowed coldly. Indeed. However, my body defense is stronger than yours. Even though I have taken the full force of your 2 palms, my injuries are not obvious. But what about you? Jian Wushuang sneered. Chapter 1526, Terrifying Consciousness Attack. Chapter 1526, Terrifying Consciousness Attack. Zi Dongwang's face changed. The intense battle between him and Jian Wushuang earlier was actually too close to call. However, due to the difference in their defensive powers, he was injured but Jian Wushuang was totally fine. It was something he couldn't accept. Previously, the white-robed swordsman. Now, Jian Wushuang? No. There's already God-destroying king above me. I definitely can't stand a second person above me, let alone a third. Jian Wushuang, you have to die. There was an unprecedented insanity twinkling in Zi Dongwang's eyes. The moment he roared, Hong, a boundless purple divine light flowed out from Zi Dongwang. He clasped his hands together and fathomless divine power flowed into his palms. A terrifying power slowly condensed in his hands. Want to go all out now? Jian Wushuang concentrated. He could tell that the next move that Zi Dongwang was going to take wouldn't be insignificant. If not mistaken, it should be Zi Dongwang's strongest unique skill. Unique skill. Jian Wushuang shook his head in silence. He knew that Zidongwang was going to perform his strongest unique skill, but Zhen Wushuang couldn't give play to a matching sword principle to fight evenly. In terms of unique skill, he was really at an absolute disadvantage. No choice. He was only a universe god in the second heaven after all. Even if he were to have the ability to create a unique skill of a higher level, he still couldn't create one. He couldn't match evenly with his sword principle, but Zhen Wushuang had another technique. Rumble. There was boundless divine power flowing in Zhen Wushuang's body along with the ancient god power that he possessed. At that very moment, they were all flowing into his right index finger intensely. His index finger gave out an intense golden light and a bolt of earth-shattering power continued to accumulate. After a good while, Zhen Wushuang and Zidongwang were done preparing to launch their moves. Zhen Wushuang. Zidongwang let out a roar and his voice soared to the ninth heaven. Come on. Zhen Wushuang let out a chilly glare. The next moment, both of them launched attacks at one another at the same time. Hong. A towering hand that was formed by purple divine power appeared in the universe. The huge purple hand almost formed a substantiated purple crystal and covered the vast void. It slowly patted and the space it passed constantly made explosive sounds. In the end, it shattered like a pane of glass. Before the huge purple hand, there was an ancient hand that extended. The ancient hand was dark gold and an enormous amount of divine power concentrated in one huge finger in the end. The finger in dark gold poked through the void. Zidongwang's strongest unique skill. Zhen Wushuang also went all out to perform his strongest attack technique, Ancient God Fourth Finger. The power of both techniques shook heaven and earth. Suddenly, they collided head-on. At the beginning, there wasn't any vigorous noise, only two bolts of boundless divine power constantly compressing and clashing, as though there were two worlds constantly melting. But the melting only lasted for a short while. Vroom. A shapeless shockwave suddenly soared up from the middle where the two bolts of power collided. Then, it swept out with no mercy. Within the 100-mile range, Shinju was still standing there as he manipulated the three headless warriors to fight against the three demonic dragons. However, even with him manipulating the three headless warriors personally, they were only evenly matched with the three demonic dragons. Then, the shockwave swept out and glided against the three headless warriors and three demonic dragons like breaking dead wood. In silence, the three headless warriors and the three demonic dragons dispersed straight away. One should know that the three headless warriors and three demonic dragons possessed the fighting powers of an ordinary real god. They were merely hit by the shockwave caused by the collision of the two bolts of power and they disappeared. It is that strong. Shinju, who was swept by the shockwave, was then gawking with his eyes wide open. In the divine power storm that was formed by the two bolts of power. Wow! A sharp sword light forcefully tore all the obstacles before him. Zhen Wushuang's figure directly pierced the divine power storm and appeared before Zidongwang. Zidongwang, take this. There was a chilly gleam in Zhen Wushuang's eyes and there was suddenly a black long spear that gave out unique aura in his hands. As his soul power flowed and covered the black long spear, it instantly turned into a bunch of black lights and suddenly shot out. The long spear didn't look very powerful, but in actual fact, the long spear contained the strongest soul attack that Zhen Wushuang had performed with his all. The second stage of the secret skill of Tian Yuan. Inextinguishable light. The inextinguishable light with the support of divine spear was a divine power that was terrifying. Suddenly, the bunch of black light came before Zidongwang. Humph. Zidongwang harumphed coldly and slapped. The black long spear was immediately slapped away. However, the soul attack contained in the black long spear wasn't hindered but immersed itself into Zidongwang's body like lightning. A terrifying soul power suddenly descended. It's a consciousness attack. Zidongwang instantly alerted and immediately started a consciousness defense. However, the consciousness attack was like a sharp blade and forcefully tore his consciousness defense apart. In the end, it hit his consciousness without scruples. A shrill roar was heard from Zidongwang. Zidongwang couldn't stand the sharp pain in his consciousness and he immediately knelt down. His face was flushed red and distorted in agony. The moment where Zidongwang drowned in acute pain, Jian Wushuang appeared before him and his blood mountain sword showed no mercy but turned into a crimson streak of lightning and slammed down at Zi Dongwang's head. The acute pain in Zi Dongwang's consciousness had yet to subside and he couldn't withstand the stroke, but the armor on his body covered his entire body. Clang! Blood Mountain's sword slashed at Zi Dongwang's head and a fierce divine power exploded. Even though Zi Dongwang's head didn't break apart because of the protection of his armor, the fierce power spread into Zi Dongwang's body through the armor. Then, it hit the internal organs of his body insanely. Poof! Zi Dongwang spat a mouthful of fresh blood and his face instantly grew pale. He was dispirited by half and his body started falling down after the hit. However, Zi Dongwang's body had yet to fall on the ground but it suddenly stopped. His bloodshot eyes stared at Jian Wushuang and there was fear in his eyes. So scary. Such a terrifying consciousness attack. Compared to Xin Zhu's 9-weight destruction, it was much stronger. A consciousness attack like this. I can't block it. I definitely can't block it. Run, run. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.